Today we're going to go with some vintage Jeeps from the 1940s and 50s on the ledges and the maze trails at Sand Mountain near Hurricane, Utah during the Winter 4x4 Jamboree 2025. Start out on the ledges and you drop down into the ledges trail off this really steep slope. Lots of really steep drops on the ledges trail that are kind of sketchy for our little flat fender Jeeps. This is an optional obstacle that Jeff Petrowich in his Willys MB Bam Bam does early on. This obstacle here is an interesting one where you have to climb up to the right. In front of us is Alan Kohler in his 51 CJ3A he calls Thumper. There's a big hole in this wall that it looks like it might swallow our tires, but we get over it okay. When you get to the top of this obstacle, it's a really steep drop down. One of the steeper drops among many on this ledges trail. This footage is being filmed by Jeff Petrowich in his 43 MB Bam Bam. We don't have any sort of fancy film equipment or anything. We just use our phones. Jeff has a iPhone. I use a Samsung. The other guys have phones, and we just share our videos with each other and put together what we can. Since we don't have any full-time photographers, we don't always end up with pictures of every obstacle or every wall that we climb or drop that we take. But we do try to get videos of most of the best action anyways on each of the trails. See, Alan doesn't have his front locker locked in there for a second. The tire spinning. That's why lockers make such a difference on this slick rock. A lot of these pictures are taken by Jeff from his iPhone on a solid mount that he has on his dash to kind of give you this driver's eye view. Now he just pulls it out of the mount to shine it across here. Now I zoomed in using my editing thing, but it takes some of the definition out of the video. But as a picture of me, I wanted to zoom in on it. This is me in my 1948 Willys CJ2A Grandpa's Jeep. I had to spin the tires a little bit to get up this wall. I really like the Ledges Trail. It's kind of like you're out exploring in the wilderness and finding different routes to get through things. Not super easy. It's an 8 rated trail. There are some bypasses on some of the obstacles, but some things like this wall you do have to get up. That's Jesse Coombs and his, I think his is a 43 Willys MB World War II Jeep. Here's Alan Kohler and Thumper. You can see how that phone sometimes will autofocus on the roll bar instead of out on the action. Just after this little climb here, there's a spot where you have to make a decision. If you go left, you go to a big obstacle, and you go right, you bypass the big obstacle. The obstacle to the left, I believe, is one called the Toad Hole. Some of you Hurricane locals might be able to correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I think it's called the Toad Hole. And most of us decided to go around that obstacle. You're coming up, you'll see how Jesse decided to take Brutus's MB up and put some tires on the Toad Hole. It's hard to see from this angle, but right there off his driver's tire is a giant hole big enough to swallow that whole Jeep. So Jesse decided to put some tires on it, but he wanted to have a rope on him just for safety to make sure if he got in that hole he didn't go over sideways or something. So a fellow Jeeper hooked on and tightened it up while he tried to climb up it.
Need to take the slack out of the road now or not?
hung up on his belly there, and the other Jeep pulled him right up. This is an interesting obstacle in that it has a really off-camber kind of climb that you have to make, and then you have to pull around to the right with your tire up on that wall. See, Alan made it in one shot, easy. Jeff didn't quite make it, and his second attempt almost looks exactly the same to me. Just a little different speed, a few inches to the left, and he's up. It's kind of the end of our tour through the ledges. Once you get up to the top, you're on this high mesa. We stop for a minute to rest and look around. Just right in front of us is where the top of the world is. There at Sand Hollow, that area. The sand dunes there off to the left, and then you can look out over the Warner Valley. And those hills and mountains in the background are Arizona. And a few of us decided to go over and try our hand on the maze trail. Most of us been through the maze quite a few times, but this was Alan's first time in the maze. And I remember the first time I did the maze, this drop, it's called the drop, into the trail was one of the scariest things I'd ever done. He handles it really well.
Barbecue sauce.
Jeff and Bam Bam have been here quite a few times. This is me and my sister Amy. We're on an obstacle called the flipper. The flipper can flip you over right at the top. It's really steep if you're not careful. I've driven up it several times. Jesse and Brutus
Nice.
make a good climb. There's Alan's, once again, his first time in Sand Hollow, his first time on the maze, first time on Flipper. It's just a little bit to the right and gets in this hole.
Get a rope.
This is just another angle of Alan's climb, and you can see how almost vertical his Jeep is. Right here, so we get a rope on him and pull him out. Jeff and Bam Bam. This obstacle here is an interesting one. You roll down a really steep hill that I've just come down, and then you have to make a hard left turn, which takes me 2 or 3 tries to get around the corner. Then you climb over this hump right here and down another steep drop, which is a really scary spot for me every time I do it. You have to drive out at the bottom in order to not flip over. At least I feel like I have to. Next up, coming down this obstacle, is our friend Ernie Ungaro and his Jeep he calls two-step. He made it look easy, and that was Ernie's first time on this obstacle or in Sand Hollow. Ernie did a great job. Going around this corner is also a little sketchy. You can't tell, but that's really off camber right there, and then there's a drop down into a hole right there. This is the next big obstacle, or really the main big obstacle on the maze. It's called You've Gotta Be Nuts. Jesse and Brutus pulled up on it to test attraction. And then Kevin Boren, our friend Kevin Boren in his YJ, just pulled around to show us the line. Then Jesse gets Brutus back on there and does another test or two. And then he makes the climb. And this is taken by Kevin from the top. See him hopping and jumping. And looking like he's going to spin out and not be able to make it. I was down at the bottom filming and I was really nervous for him. This is my shot. You can hear my voice in the background.
No. Oh my God. I'm not.
After You Gotta Be Nuts, we tried this climb here. And I'm sure it has a name, but I don't know what it is. I've driven up this thing several times. This time I just didn't make it. I had to get a strap and be pulled out. My Jeep, the gas cap, I kept rubbing it on the wall. It got bent around and it wouldn't keep fuel in very well. And you can see as he pulls me up, there's a big spill on the wall. I think that came into play later with the other people in our group. Here's Jeff in Bam Bam. Watch right when it hits that slick spot, kind of spins out. The second try was even more scary. We got him on a winch. One of the other guys in our group hooked up, and we couldn't quite figure out how to get him out of that predicament till Kevin Bourne, with his experience in rock hauling competitions, gave him a little advice.
What's the matter in that tire now?
Next up is Jesse and Brutus.
Yeah, right there. So you need to come a little bit passenger.
At the end of this attempt, Jesse makes a regular. It's actually a quite spectacular save. Then he got kind of in the same predicament I did when I drove up it. We had to put a rope on him and get him out. This kind of wraps up our adventure on the maze and the Ledges trails in Sand Hollow during Winter 4x4 Jamboree 2025. We had a wonderful time. I'd like to thank Jeff, Kevin, everyone else that helped provide videos and that came along the trail with us and made it a great time. And I'd like to thank all you for sticking with me to the end. Thanks for watching.